I think we're live. Welcome everyone back to Real United Talk. I'm Ross. The team news is about to come in I'd say 1 to 2 minutes. And I'm excited. I am excited. Send a quick link. I'm excited. I'm excited for this game. Pankaj ready for the meltdown. What for team lineup? I'm calm about it, man. I'm calm. Marcus is saying 2-0. I've just seen it on Twitter. It's going to be an interesting one, you know. This whole Pogba, will he start? Will he not start? There's going to be a mad meltdown if he doesn't. Pankaj is worried. You worried about the game or the team lineup, Pankaj? Marcus, you absolute geezer. You're here, mate. It's good to have you here. George Carl will be joining me shortly so we can get his views on the team lineup too while I can tweet some things out. There's like a mad lot of us on Twitter, including myself, constantly refreshing, constantly looking for this team lineup. Feels like a big one. Feels like we need to have Pogba in the team, if I'm being honest with you. George is here with no video, I don't think. Thinking maybe audio only. Marcus thinks Pogba starts. I'm just going to hold fire on you, George, 1 second. I don't know if you're going video or not. But let me just wait for this team lineup to come out because it is the time. It is the time. Let's add him to the stream. George. There he is.
There we are. Perfect.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, mate. I'm just one of the many Twitter refreshers right now looking for this team lineup news.
Yeah.
It feels like a big one.
Yes. The leaked team is pretty much almost... In fact, I think it's just been leaked, hasn't it?
I haven't seen it. What's the leaked team, mate?
So, it's now been finished, yeah. So, De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, Shaw, Matic, Pogba, Greenwood, Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, and Martial.
Oh, this team's disgusting, mate. What's your thoughts on it? What's your early thoughts?
So it is good because it looks like it's the front six. The one thing I sort of stressed or needed to make sure was that the front six were the six that he's gone for. So obviously Matic, Pogba and Fernandes, I think, is the most balanced and best midfield that we've got of the current squad. And then up top, obviously, you've got incredible prolific goal scorers and firepower in Greenwood, Rashford and Martial. The only sort of one player I'm really concerned about is Victor Lindelof next to Maguire. I think maybe the only thing I would say though is that I think we might have quite a lot of the ball in possession, so maybe the sort of lack of pace between those two might not be exposed like it was against Spurs.
Yeah, that's so true. It's easy. Lindelof he's a slight concern, but Maguire's a bigger concern at the minute because he was absolutely gashed the other day. But look, I think Maguire's our best centre back. But at the minute, I would probably swap Lindelof for Bailly, as would a Leating / Banter. But apart from that, this team lineup is for me the best thing we can possibly put out. Yeah, I just absolutely love it. Greenwood is what I wanted to see. I'm actually more excited about Greenwood than Pogba, but we can get into that in a little bit. But we get to see Pogba and Bruno Fernandes probably for 65 minutes and one of them will come off. But that's the excitement for me. The Pogba conversation gets not ended here, but we get to see it in better form. And Matic as well. Matic is so solid. I mean, what's your thoughts on Matic, mate?
Like I said, that front six is exactly what I would have gone for. Matic, I think, is just is our sort of best CDM, really. Someone who actually will sit consistently and constantly in order to allow, obviously, Bruno and Pogba the freedom further up the field. I don't necessarily think that McTominay and Fred themselves would characterise them as CDMs. They both feel that they're both box to boxes. And as I said, Nemanja Matic, I think, is going to really sort of secure and anchor that midfield. Although I don't anticipate that Sheffield will have that much of the ball, and they won't have that many attacks either. Like I said, I mean, I feel like, as you sort of said, that the lineup is probably the best that we could have hoped for. The only problem with that is that, because obviously, in terms of what my lineup that I wished it to have been, obviously, that, as I said, that front six is exactly what I'd have gone for. But I think obviously defensively and in goal, I would have obviously dropped De Gea for Romero, because I just feel like if Sheffield get one or two opportunities, which is ultimately all that Spurs had, and obviously one of them was straight at De Gea, he made that horrific mistake, and I didn't anticipate that Ollie would drop him, because Ollie's someone who's quite loyal and likes to stick with certain players, and obviously, like all managers, he has his favourites, of which De Gea clearly is one. But like I said, if I'd been in charge, I would have removed him for Romero, and obviously, as I sort of mentioned previously, I think I would have had Eric Bailly next to Maguire, just because I do like that mixture of pace and finesse, really, between the two. And obviously, Luke Shaw I would have replaced with Brandon Williams, because again, like I said, I feel like we're going to have a lot of the possession today, and I think that Williams just offers you something slightly more in terms of an attacking outlet, rather than Shaw, who is slightly more defensive. But again, I think Shaw is another player whom Ollie really does rate, and is again one of his favourites. So again, it was unlikely he was going to drop him, and obviously so it's proved.
I think both of the wing backs need to kick up the arse today. They need to play better. He's gone with Shaw again, but I would like to think that he's giving him a kick up the arse. I totally disagree with you, mate, on the De Gea thing. I think it's one mistake. I think you stick with him. You'd never drop a keeper off one mistake. And look, one of the most informed keepers in the Premier League right now, which is also our keeper, Henderson, dropped a clanger a few days ago as well. It's doable. Everyone's out of practice. Everyone hasn't trained properly. But look, I wouldn't expect a De Gea mistake today. I mean, he made that absolute clanger, right? Let's not get it twisted. It was horrendous. However, he pulled off a couple of worldies straight after it. It doesn't seem to affect him. So I'm just hoping that I'm hoping to see a De Gea that doesn't have to do a lot, to be honest, if our back four can just sort themselves out. Rashford and Martial, again, is interesting. I want to see more from both of them as well. I actually thought Bruno Fernandes lost the ball a lot, but I really liked what he was trying to do. I've never wanted to hammer someone for losing the ball when trying to be super creative. And that's the same with Pogba as well today. I'm fully expecting him to lose the ball a lot. But they don't have a lot of movement up there. Martial looked lost, to be honest, in that game at times. And then, look, he come up with two really good opportunities towards the end. But I want to see a bit more movement for him. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Martial definitely does need to look to improve, really, upon his final game. He's one of those players, I think, there's obviously... when you sort of study him, it does appear like, when you actually sort of delve into his game in more depth, it does appear that he does do it quite a lot off the ball and bits and pieces. It's just that they don't necessarily find him. And I think that's something that hopefully with Bruno and Pogba both working in tandem now from the start, that hopefully we're going to see Martial have more chances created for him. There's obviously an argument to be made that should Martial be doing more to create his own chances? But at the same time, I think often the way that we play is quite rigid and inflexible sometimes in terms of allowing an attacking threat. Really, we don't necessarily play a possession sort of based football, which would, in essence, create more chances for Martial. We tend to really struggle to break down teams, especially, of course, as we saw against Spurs when they go one up, and against a determined defensive unit such as potentially Sheffield are going to have, although of course they're missing Egan and Henderson for suspension and because of contractual obligations.
just quickly on Sheffield's lineup, I may as well read it out. You've got this guy called Moore in goal. Never heard of him. Assuming he's trash. A 50-year-old Phil Jagielka at centre back with Robinson and Basham. Again, never heard of him. Baldock at right back, who I swear I've signed on Football Manager before.
Right.
Again, not familiar with him. Stevens, Fleck, Norwood, Lundstrom. I know of him because I have him in my Fantasy Premier. Mousset and McGoldrick. Now, I know Sheffield United are doing well this season, right? I don't want to give them too much disrespect, but that team is wank.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so bad. If United don't destroy this team at home, I'm going to be absolutely livid. I'm just going to read a few comments out quickly.
Yeah.
Martial is not the one to run around. He waits for the best opportunity pass. Yes, he does. And when he gets a good pass into him, he does do good with it. However, I would be concerned that when, things are not going right for the team, he's not pulling his weight to try and turn that around. What if you start Bailey and he gets injured and then you lose the option from the bench? I disagree with that notion, to be honest. I don't think you can protect players from injury. They're either fit or they're not, in my eyes. What's your thoughts on that one?
I think we all know that Eric Bailly is exceptionally injury prone, and he's proven it over the time that he's been here. There is an argument to be made that potentially we shouldn't have signed him in the first place because he was coming even off. When he obviously played for his previous club, he was someone who had suffered quite a few injuries. And unfortunately, that's continued as he's been with us. Often he's shown glimpses of real and true quality, and there have been instances and glimpses of where he might potentially be the best centre back that we've got at the club. But
that performance against Chelsea was mad, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely sensational. Yes. Simply put, I mean, there's the clip, of course, which really sort of summed or encapsulated up his performance, where Harry Maguire is turned and obviously Chelsea forwards in on goal, and Eric Bailly comes out of absolutely nowhere and comes across and makes the recovery block and tackle. And there's no other defender in our squad that would have made that would have even got close to obviously being able to make that recovery tackle. And that's why, obviously, off the back of stellar performances like that, that's why a lot of the fans, myself included, would want to see him partnering Maguire more often rather than Lindelof.
It kind of feels like he's the perfect partner for Maguire because you kind of relying on Maguire's reading of the game more than his physical attributes, where with Eric Bailly, you've got the physical attributes, the tough tackling, the speed, the last ditchness, where I feel like Harry Maguire needs to... Reminds me a little bit of John Terry, and I know we all hate John Terry. That's fair, but it just reminds me of John Terry's defensive style. Good positioning, not the quickest, but you don't need to be when you've got an intelligent brain, and he definitely has that. George, don't you just wish Young was still in this team? Says Jay Hart. Are you actually a Young fan?
I was before almost everybody that I know of. I was on the Ashley Young out brigade quite a few years ago, but no, definitely not. I think Young was extremely lucky, in respect of the amount of injuries that we incurred, in our fullback areas. And of course, he profited from that in terms of making far more appearances and outstaying his welcome a lot longer than he should have done. I remember at the back end of last season when, of course, the real sort of Young out sort of propaganda began, or at least became more mainstream and widely accepted that he wasn't good enough. Some of the performances, particularly, I remember against Barcelona, I think it was a horrific mistake, wasn't there, where he just sort of gave the ball back on one of their goals. Which just really sort of summed up how bad he'd sort of become. And I think he was sort of the sort of psychological effects as well, because I think Ashley Young's not necessarily a stupid man. The psychological effects of knowing that a lot of the fan base didn't rate him had started to really creep in. And I think that was,
that Barcelona performance was the beginning of the end, wasn't it? It was absolutely shocking. And he was, although in retrospect, Barcelona were probably going to knock us out anyway. He just destroyed that whole Champions League experience for the team, for the fan base. It was so bad. I'm just going to shout out some names of everyone that's here because we really do appreciate everyone that tunes in, and it's the same people week in week, which is sick. So we've got Pankaj, Marcus, Jay Hart, Elite Ting, Beck, Max, and George Carl. See you in there, man.
Yeah.
Jesse Lingard is a god, isn't he, George? Says Beck.
If by God you mean a social media
social media god,
then yes, he is. I think Jesse Lingard is definitely a very polarizing footballer with the fan base. He does have a lot of critics, which are kind of understandable given the level of the performances which he's put in consistently for a couple of years now. I think it has been at least a couple of years since all the sort of Messi Lingard memes were around when he was playing out of his skin.
You know, a player's shit when everyone just loves it when he scores against them so they can use it as a troll.
Yeah,
because that's what it is, isn't it? It's Jesse Lingard scored against you, mate. That's how shit you are, mate. Just quickly, my opinion on him is that I genuinely believe he is a very, very average footballer that was in United's academy. I don't think he was ever going anywhere. For some unknown reason, Van Gaal decided to use him. He was given a lifeline, and Jose Mourinho loved him because he was average, but he would work his bollocks off. But he had like 6 months where he looked half decent, but that was just him going through a real purple patch and playing completely out of his technical abilities. If that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think his one real sort of strength, which Rio Ferdinand commented on, and I think is a lot of the reason why sometimes he was utilised by Jose Mourinho. And of course, he was also part of, we mustn't forget, although he didn't necessarily score or assist that much, he was part of that first sort of 3 months under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when we were blowing people away, just because his sort of like running levels and ability to manoeuvre and make space is almost his sort of greatest strength. But obviously, so it's off the ball rather than on the ball where he's extremely good. And of course, it did culminate. His sort of best period of form did culminate, in being picked for England, of course, in the World Cup 2018, and sort of being in the starting lineup in a semi-final. Those sort of bits and pieces. But again, he's sort of really sort of found his level now. And I know, of course, we must be really careful because he has alluded to some of the depression, anxiety, those sort of problems that he's had. But sometimes, obviously, when it's you have to really sort of look for the good of the team again.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't really, especially at such a high professional level, you can't carry players. And too often we were carrying Lingard, and the sort of dramatic turn in fortunes that we've had since Bruno Fernandes has now occupied the number 10 spot, which Lingard was, is testament to the fact that we have to go with the club once. Yeah,
it's night and day, like the difference between them two. It's just crazy. Mark Atherton's in the chat as well, which is sick. How you doing, Mark? Great support of this channel. One thing I wanted to give a real big shout out to is Ole Gunnar for this, because look, he picked the team that he picked for last week based on what he saw in training, and I don't think you could give him any criticism for that. He made the right substitutions, and the substitutions had the impact. He's now picked, for me and for what I see on Twitter, everyone's dream Man United lineup. A couple of tweaks in defence maybe, but people really concentrate on midfield going forward. Yeah. This seems to be perfect for me. Too perfect. Now, Jose never did this. I think Jose picked the dream United lineup once, and the team played shit, and he never did it again. I don't know if you can remember it, George. I remember being livid with it as well. But this is it for me. So I'm really hoping that the players do Ole some justice and go and put out performance there. I'm hoping that I was one of the guys that said Pogba should have started on the bench. I was so happy that he come on and made the impact. Now I'm one of the guys that's saying Pogba should start. I want him to make the same fucking impact. I want Pogba to shut down everything I've ever said bad about him. I honestly do. I want him to take this game and run with it.
I often feel like with Paul Pogba, I feel like sometimes the fans' expectations of what he can deliver are too high. And what I mean by that is that, you know, when he first arrived, I remember a lot of people said that what we must do is, because of course he did arrive for that. I think it was the world record fee, wasn't it, at that time, for 89 million. I think it was the world record fee. And of course, a lot of people wanted to compare him to people such as Ronaldo, who obviously, you know, had previously gone for 80 million, those sort of figures. And in terms of like the goal involvements and goal contributions. And we always knew, or at least we said at that time, we always knew that Paul Pogba couldn't provide that level of like goals and assists because, of course, he plays in a totally different position and his game is not that. So we all said, well, what we want him to do is be able to win us football matches, which ultimately is the same sort of reason as to why someone like Paul Scholes should always be rated more highly than Steven Gerrard or Frank Lampard, is because of the amount of trophies that we won and the amount of games and the amount of matches that we won. Because it's all about what the team have, not what an individual stats are. If that individual is paramount to a team winning trophies, leagues, those sort of bits and pieces. But what I feel like is that a lot of people have lost sight of that idea that we weren't going to expect Paul Pogba to be pulling up trees, and they now expect him to be scoring, assisting absolutely every single game. And if he isn't, then a lot of the blame falls on him. Like I said, I feel like that's definitely happened.
It's happened so much in the past because we had B-Tech midfielders playing with him and a shocking back four. So the hope from me and probably you and every United fan now is that with a solid back four and a fucking solid defensive midfielder, Matic gets too much disrespect. We can just let Pogba flourish now and say, like, you know what? Yeah, you're going to have to get back at certain points, but it's not going to be like the Jose times. It's not going to be 10 men. It will be in certain games. Don't get me wrong. Ollie does compact when he needs to. But as long as Pogba realises, well, hang on, this isn't going to be every game. You know, I can do that when asked. Like you say, we will see this different Paul Pogba. And I don't want to like sort of get way ahead of myself here, but I can almost see Pogba. We haven't really seen Pogba under Ollie properly, I don't think. But we're going to start to see Pogba hopefully flourish under Ollie as well, because Ollie, I think, plays the right football for Paul. But just quickly, my man, my favorite. I've said it. I never said this on this stream. But he's my favorite United player currently in this team. It's Mason Greenwood. I absolutely love the kid. And I think he's absolutely lethal. I'm praying for a good game for him today. Do you think he could be the answer to our right wing problem?
No.
So get off! I'm going to beat him.
So for the remainder of this season, I think it makes sense to play him there because we don't necessarily have a definitive right winger in the squad, even. So someone who plays naturally as a right winger. The only one who you can maybe say that of is Tahith Chong, and he's not necessarily ready to sort of make the step up on a consistent basis. Dan James, you know, prefers the left wing. So does Marcus Rashford. So people have, you know, who do. What do you
think? Just to butt in, what do you think about Dan James? Do you rate him?
I think he's. It is difficult with Dan James. I very much do rate him because I feel like he's got a lot of the raw materials and minerals to make a success of himself in terms of like the physical characteristics. Someone who has that level of pace, as long as they can sort of marry that with some level of skill and technical ability, that's always going to stand them in good stead. Because if you're quicker than defenders, you can always hopefully go round them. What has become apparent though is that I think the step up from the Championship has been too great and too steep, and Ollie's used him more often than he should have done potentially, because a lot of defenders now, I feel like, compared to at the start of the season, of course, he started off like a firecracker, scoring goals, assisting, and he was almost our best player in August and early part of September. But I feel like a lot of defences have now figured him out, and there is an element of one-dimensionality to his play, where he sort of constantly looks to go on the outside and then in across.
If you don't think Greenwood's the answer to our right wing, do you think he's the answer to the striker?
He could be, yes. It's very difficult, to be honest with you. If you
I want you to say Greenwood is the GOAT, right? That's what I'm trying to get out here.
He has. We've seen it a lot of times, though. That's the thing, is that we've seen a lot of players come along. There's far more players who have not made it than have made it, and that's where we have to be quite careful in terms of how much we build someone like Mason Greenwood up. Is because, like I said, the probability, not only is there such a small, minuscule, infinite possibility of someone actually becoming a footballer, a professional footballer, but then you've got to then sort of multiply that percentage, even more to an even greater degree in terms of smallness, as to how many actually go on to become world class footballers, or to even top quality footballers. And obviously, that's what Mason Greenwood is trying to beat, is those statistics. Having said that, he's shown glimpses of true quality, and he's been very clinical. I think because Jadon Sancho has recently turned 20, I think that in the top 5 European leagues, I'm pretty sure Mason Greenwood's got the most goal contributions. I think, or at least, or maybe even potentially the most goal contributions per minute. If that makes sense. So, like I said, he's started off very well. There's elements and, of course, comparisons made in terms of his style with Robin van Persie. If he can become even sort of 80-90% of the player, then he'll do well for us.
He's gonna become 120% of the Van Persie. I'm gonna summarise it. Well, I've seen clips of Pele when he was a kid, and Greenwood just looks way beyond it. I'm just gonna read some comments quick. So, Dedrick's in the house. I did reply to you in the comments. Max says, I'm not sure about James. We'll give him a few years. Yeah. Same with me. Dan James is not the answer to our right wing, says Creamy Benja. So I totally agree with it, man. I think we could go out now and spend £100 million and buy 3 wingers, and that'd all be better than him. No, it's so good. 2022, Greenwood would be our starting number 9. I so want that to happen, Elite. Mark says, are you getting many splinters on that fence, George? Hey, Greenwood for Prime Minister. Hey. If it doesn't work out, I would have preferred Ben Rama or Bowen if we signed a championship winger. See, my frustration with him was just that Ollie said, well, he started way too many games this season. He wasn't supposed to come through like that. Yet when you've got a full squad team, you start him. It doesn't make sense, Ollie. You've corrected it this game. Beautiful. Score predictions, man. Obviously, Ben alluded to it earlier that we're playing a load of farmers. I think that's even a bit rich for them, to be honest. Gardeners is what they are. What do you reckon the score's going to be, mate?
I think 3-1.
Ooh, so you think, this is really interesting, you think our defence is going to concede again?
I haven't. The problem is I haven't seen that much of Sheffield United this season, other than the match obviously they played with us when they scored 3 against us. So going off that basis of that,
that's just mad,
as an initial
so
thing.
Mad.
And also, I saw them obviously against Newcastle when a few days ago, where very much a sending off turned the game, where they did But again, they don't really offer too much. But at the same time, like I said, I've got some concerns about our defence in terms of conceding even when you don't necessarily have that many shots against you.
Yeah, that's so true. I said something last weekend, not last weekend. Was it last weekend? When did we play? Friday. I said something Friday pre-match that it come true. Is that United have very quick technical players. There's VAR involved. There's going to be rusty defenders, and we are going to get a penalty. And I think we're going to get another one today. Our players are so quick on their feet and so technical, and defenders are, especially defenders that are slightly rusty. We get penalties anyway. So I think we're going to get a penalty this game. And I think that, Mark's just said a comment. I actually did say Friday, who the fuck is Bergwijn? And I called him a farmer, and then he finessed us. Yeah. That wasn't great. But 2-0 Greenwood and Pogba. I'm actually, so my score prediction, not that anyone cares, is I think we're going to bring back 4 Chester United. Do you remember that, mate?
I do remember that. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
Jose Mourinho, wasn't it?
yeah.
Second season, wasn't it?
Four
With
Chester
Lukaku and
United.
stuff like that. Yeah,
Four,
Mkhitaryan.
4 Chester United's coming back. I think we're going to win 4-0. I really do. But let's see. The games have been dead.
That's why I'm sort of going for maybe a slightly more reserved scoreline, because especially with the heat as well, and also I think with all these water breaks, they really are sort of
shit,
but they're sort of interrupting the flow of the game too much, and often it's basically changing the entire dynamic of the game in terms of. Before, you would used to obviously have to wait 45 minutes to have a break, but now it's almost like 4 mini games, if that makes sense. Rather than, so as I said, it's changed it all completely, and it really does, interrupt everything, and it's just changed everything. So, like I said, I'm sort of going for a 3-1.
Mark says he's betting against 4-0 with Ross's form. Don't worry, Mark. We don't advertise betting here, so we don't have to talk about it. I'm not going to give you a rundown of all the fucking odds and tell you to put a tenner on. You may win a fucking United sock. I like taking water breaks during sets. You lose the edge. Hearty 3-0. I predicted Bergman would score the bender. Shit. I'm probably going to end it there. It's been a really good stream. Cheeky half hour. I'm going to get on with watching the game. Excited. Old Trafford's primed. George, thanks so much for coming on, man. You're a geezer.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much, Ross, and thanks for everyone who's watched as well.
That's it. It's the same. It's the same faces, the same guys, and I absolutely love them all. Apart from Marcus. How are you doing, mate? So just to let you know, Marcus is doing the halftime little chat to see what's going on. I'm hoping he's going to be beer open, celebrating being 2-0 up, and Rodney is going to do post-match. Sick.
Perfect.
That's the best thing about having 3 people do one channel, isn't it? It's so easy. Catch you later, everyone.